Here with more, author of The Price of Principle, great book, by the way, Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, along with the attorney for President Trump, Lindsey Halligan, is with us. Lindsey, I'll start with you tonight. Is that, in fact, everything John reported accurate?
Yes. President Trump, to my understanding, declassified everything. The FBI's withholding of information and lack of transparency is crazy. It's honestly, it may be the first step to tyranny. Controlling the channel of information is also part of that. And if it wasn't for Truth Social, Twitter might have banned President Trump from telling the world what happened on Monday. It seems that they want to silence President Trump and cancel his ability to tell the truth. If you look at his track record, he's exposed them, one, spying on his campaign, two, the corruption of Hunter Biden's influence peddling for millions of dollars, and three, voter fraud. The invention of ballot drop boxes, which the Supreme Court just ruled unconstitutional. And now he's exposing the overreach of Monday's raid on Mar-a-Lago. We still don't know what exact documents they took other than some mementos.
Yeah. Professor Dershowitz, let's get your take on all of this, and very specifically, too, along with the classification issue, the Espionage Act sections cited in the warrant.
Well, first of all, if it is true that these were declassified, then the Justice Department must immediately file an amendment to its request for a search warrant. It must disclose this new information to the judge, unlike what happened under the FISA, where they failed to disclose this new information. If, in fact, these materials were declassified, then the search warrant, the application for the search warrant, and the affidavit, if it didn't include this information, it would have to be voidable at this point. And so that's the first key. And there are so many other issues here. The Espionage Act, as a civil libertarian, it was the worst act possible. It was used to go after dissidents. It was used to go after a previous presidential candidate, Eugene V. Debs, a socialist. Civil libertarians hated this statute. The ACLU was constantly jumping up and down. You can't use the espionage statute. It was used against Ellsberg, everybody else. Now, the same people who oppose the espionage statute are jumping up and down saying, wow, we have the espionage statute. We can now get Trump. We might not have been able to get him previously, but we're going to use this statute, which we hate and opposed for years, to try to get Trump. And we're going to try to disqualify him because we're going to amend the Constitution and say the criteria for president running for office goes beyond the four criteria in the Constitution, and Congress can pass a statute saying that if you're convicted under a crime, you can't. Now, if that were true, then a Democratic-controlled Congress could disqualify a Republican like Trump from running for re-election. So obviously, that would be unconstitutional.
So let me stay on one. Let me focus in on one thing that you're saying here, because the Espionage Act, 18 U.S.C. 793, that came up a lot with Hillary Clinton. It also came up with Sandy Berger, who actually went into the National Archives, took documents, shoved them in his crotch and in his socks, and walked out with them and got a slap on the wrist. Hillary Clinton, even James Comey, admitted that, in fact, she had top-secret classified information on a server that was hacked by foreign entities, but said, yeah, even though we acknowledge the law was likely broken, no prosecutor would ever prosecute. So now we've got, what, do we have equal justice or not in this country, Professor?
We're an announcement of equal justice. We have the Attorney General saying that equality is the essence of the Justice Department, but then never explaining why these espionage statutes are used now. They were never used against Berger and certainly not against Clinton. And the question is, do we really have equality, or do we have a double standard of justice? And it seems to me that although Garland says we have equality, his actions speak louder than words. And going after President Trump, who I voted against, I'm a liberal Democrat, not a Republican. I want to have the right to vote for him or against him when he runs again. I don't want a bureaucrat making the decision whether he should be allowed to run. So I don't think we have equal justice today. And I think every American, right or left, Republican or Democrat, should be opposed to what's going on now and demand that the standards that were previously used continue to be used and there not be any changes because somebody is a Republican rather than a Democrat. Equal protection of the law is central.
Yeah. Lindsey, let me give you the last word, but also I want to ask you this question. When the president called for the release of all documents, is he also calling for the release of the affidavit? And as it relates to Professor Dershowitz's arguments based on John Solomon's report, will the president now act on that and demand that the Attorney General take the action the professor mentioned?
Yes, what President Trump means by release the documents is release the documents, stop hiding stuff. The attorneys have asked the Department of Justice over the phone many times, can you give us the full and complete inventory of everything that was taken from President Trump's house? And they refused to give a full list. And what's interesting is the warrant was executed on Friday, and they didn't raid the place until Monday. And if the documents that President Trump had at his property were so top secret, so classified, and such a threat to national security, why did they wait 2 to 3 days to break in?
It's a great point. If it was about nuclear, yeah, you think they would have acted sooner. Or the FBI and the DOJ were there, and I'm not sure if you were there, but I know others were, and Donald Trump said, you're welcome anytime. Come back anytime you want. Is that true?
That's the last thing that he said to them when they were on his property. He said, anything else you need, just let us know. And the next time that they heard from them was when they asked President Trump to turn off his video surveillance before they started their search.
But you still have control of that surveillance video. Will you be releasing it publicly?
That's up to President Trump.
Okay. Thank you, Alan Dershowitz. Lindsey Halligan, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.